Welcome. We are the 10 Pence Arcade Podcast, Sean and I.
Hello.
Hello.
And this is the Legends of Gaming. We have three esteemed guests here. On the end, we have Tony Temple, John Studley, and David Line. Absolutely. More woos, please. And you may or may not know these guys. The two on the end you probably do know. Tony Temple's very famous to be the world record holder of Missile Command. Can you tell us, Tony, what that consisted of?
Mic's not working. What consisted of?
The record, how you did it, and what settings you did on the arcade hardware?
Yeah, sure. So Missile Command was my game as a kid when I was 12 and 13, and I used to play it in my local town of Bristol. I used to go into Mad Harry's and play it down there, and in my local cafe in the area where I live. And I was pretty good at it, but of course, as we all know, the arcades disappeared. Missile Command got converted into Street Fighter or something horrific. And I never got a chance to play it again. And then, when I got some exams and got some qualifications, went to work, and fast forward to when I was sort of in my mid-30s, I discovered something called eBay. And I noticed that people were buying and selling arcade machines. And I thought to myself, I remember that game, Missile Command. I wonder if I can buy one. Without boring you all, I ended up. I found myself one day in the basement of Archer McLean's house, which is something to be recommended. And I got talking to Archer about arcade machines and restorations, and I mentioned this game called Missile Command that I used to be pretty good at. And he said, follow me. He took me to a corner, and there was a Missile Command, and I hadn't seen one for years and years. And so we agreed a price, and Archer agreed to restore the Missile Command cabinet for me, and that was my first arcade machine. And then I started playing it again at home and thinking, I've still got the chops. I think it's kind of like riding a bike, I think. If you're good at a video game, it sort of tends to be in your DNA somewhat. And so I went on the internet and discovered that, there are organisations out there who track high scores, and I looked at what the high score was on Missile Command, and it was something like 80 million points set by a guy called Victor Ali in 1984, and he played Missile Command for 2.5 days.
Non-stop.
Non-stop for 2.5 days, and I thought, by this time I had a wife and kids, and I thought, I'm old, I do not really want to stay awake for 2.5 days, although I kind of thought I could actually do it. But then I discovered something called tournament settings. Am I going on? I'm sorry, could I?
No, you're good. It's interesting.
Very good. Keep going, mate. Tell us the tournament settings. That's what I was trying to get to earlier about, because obviously marathoning is when you do it for days on end,
Right.
with endless. You can get endless lives.
Indeed.
The way you do it for your record was very different.
Indeed. Yes. So tournament settings are a setting on arcade machines that Twin Galaxies introduced. Twin Galaxies being the high score guys over in the US. If you take Missile Command as an example, if you play on standard settings as we did in the arcades when we were kids, every 10,000 points you get a bonus city, or effectively a bonus life. So what that means is, if on every screen you're good enough to score 10,000 points, you can in theory play the game indefinitely. So don't worry about defending the cities, just shoot stuff down, score 10,000 points, and you get a bonus city and the game can continue. So this is why guys like Victor Ali could play the game for 2.5 days. You just play it forever. And then what it becomes is not really a test of your skill. It, to my mind anyway, it becomes a test of how long can I stay awake for. Because if you know you've got the skills to just keep playing this game, well, it's just about staying awake basically. Which kind of it sort of struck me that didn't really strike me as a sort of true video game challenge. Although there's some merit to playing a game for 2.5 days, I suppose. What tournament settings does is it removes those bonus cities. So if you're familiar with Missile Command, you get 6 cities which you have to protect, so you've effectively got 6 lives. On tournament settings, once they're gone, they're gone. So you only get 6 cities, you don't get any bonuses, that's it. And I thought, that high score is doable, and I thought I'll have a crack at that. And at the time, Walter Day from Twin Galaxies said to me, if you can beat the world record by the end of March, and it was like the middle of February, I think we could get you in to the Guinness Book of Records. So that was kind of my motivation to really go for it. What I did have to do in my case, and I don't know if it's similar for you guys, but I had to completely break my game down and restart it, because playing under tournament settings is completely different to playing under marathon settings. Because subconsciously you're thinking, well, I'm okay because I'm going to get a bonus city anyway on marathon settings, so it doesn't really matter if I mess something up or if I'm not particularly accurate. With tournament settings, you don't have that luxury, so you have to be completely pinpoint accurate, and you have to completely change the way you play the game. So I basically had 6 weeks to sort of deconstruct the way I played Missile Command and then sort of build it back up again using different strategies and different techniques. And on the 26th of May 2006, I beat the world record and got myself into the Guinness Book. That, Victor, is my Missile Command story, and I committed to the house.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
You beat it by quite a stretch, didn't you? You beat it by a massive margin.
So, yeah, remember these?
Yeah.
Remember these?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the original world record, which was held for 26 years, was 1.6 million points, and I scored 1.9 million points. And then 2 years later, I beat it again and got 2.2 million points. And then in 2010, because this guy, John Stoodley, was kicking me and telling me I need to improve my score because people were snapping in my heels. In 2010, I got it up to 4.4 million points.
Wow.
So
That's a massive.
that took just under 3 hours.
Wow.
To do that.
With not missing any of your cities at all.
Well, you do inevitably lose
Now and again, yeah, but
cities,
trying not to.
But yeah,
Wow.
it's just sort of guarding your final city for
dear life, yeah.
Yeah, for dear life. So I was guarding that last city for sort of like 2/3 of the game.
Did you do that at home, Tony, or did you do that at an event, or?
Yeah, I did. I did the last score at home, and I recorded it on DVD and sent it to the refs over in Texas. But the second score I got, I did live, which again is another debate, which probably these guys can talk about, which is around: is it legitimate to set an arcade world record at home and film it and send it in, as opposed to doing it live in front of people? So yeah.
Taking what you just said there, Tony, we'll move on to John, who did do his record live. And can you tell us a little bit about that, John, and what it is?
Right, yeah, it was a little bit different to Tony because I played live in the arcades like most of the guys did here. So I got into Pac-Man 1981. It wasn't really my game. When I got into Pac-Man 81, my brother used to play. And I typically played Berserk, which was a game from 1980. So just to help him out, I would play a 2-player game. So within 6 months, I was a 1 million point player on Pac-Man. When I was 14, 1983, I had at the time was the unofficial world record, so I had 3.221 million. But after that, I didn't play. From 85 onwards, that was it. I was done with video games, and it was only in 2008 that I sort of got back into playing video games as well. Met Tony, got an arcade cab off him, so I started to get back into playing again. Then I found out about the Bill Mitchell and the Perfect Game and Pac-Man. And when I played when I was younger, I was very confident. I was convinced I was the best player. So to revisit that, it was almost a unique point of view for me, because I was there to beat my old score and to carry on from where I left off. So since I've played, I've only played live. So I've played at every major event in the UK. I've been to the States for probably 5 or 6 years with Tony, so we played live in America as well. So I finally beat my 3.221 million score from June 83 live at FunSport in America. So then I was pushed mainly by Tony as well to go for this perfect game. And I was sort of convinced at the time that a perfect game wasn't possible. It was something that you was born from the likes of MAME. So with MAME you can obviously advance, you can pause, you can choose what board that you want to practice on. So I was sort of against going for a perfect game, so I decided then, let's do it live, let's do it the correct way. So with help from a guy called Tim Balderramos, who's one of the perfect players in America, he did some live streaming on Twitch. It was just me and him, so we do a private Twitch stream. Then he was doing some what's called freehand grouping. So if you know anything about Pac-Man, on the first Galaxian it's called the first 1 second board. So when you eat one of the power pills, the ghosts turn blue for 1 second. So you've got 1 second to get all 4 ghosts. You have to do that every single board, every single 1 second board. And the thing about Perfect Pac-Man is, from the beginning when you press stars to the end, board 256, you have to clear everything. You can't miss a blue ghost, you can't miss a bonus, you can't miss anything, you can't make any mistakes. So that was the challenge. So you had to go for literally 6 hours. I freehand as well, so I don't use patterns up to board 21. So I freehand all the ghosts. So going back to Tim, we did these live streams, and I thought, well, maybe I can do this. So I had to learn this new strategy called freehand grouping, which you might have seen me do on the machine outside. And the machine they've got there is actually the machine I got the perfect game on in 2015 at Margate. So you can actually play it. It's a really good cab. So that was the challenge. So the challenge took from basically 2008 to 2015. So I had to knock some barriers down. So personal score, playing live in America, playing with the likes of some of the perfect players, Dom Hayes, Bill Mitchell, getting some tips from them. But yeah, the whole journey was playing live. So it was either in the UK, we play all the different events around the UK, and then Tony and I go over to Funspot, and in effect, carrying the flag for the UK guys. Because they own all the records and they're extremely confident as well, some fantastic players there. And even to watch Tony play live in the States, getting world record scores in the States as well. It's been a real incentive for me. But to get the perfect game there's no Europeans in there, they're all North American guys. And I was convinced I could do it, so in the end, 2015 at Margate I actually got the perfect score, which is 3,333,360 live at their event.
And how many people in the world actually can do that now? Because at the time, was it 6 people in the world who can do the perfect?
Yeah, well, you've got arcade and then you've got MAME. So for arcade, it's 6 or
Wow.
7. I know Bill's score's been taken off, but that's a completely different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 7 people. So since 1980, it's only 7 people got the perfect game.
And the amazing thing about your record shop, and I am going to blow your trumpet for you now, is at the time, you weren't practicing on any MAME, using any kind of advancements or whatever. You just did it on that cabinet. And when you did the record, you didn't own the cabinet. You hadn't played it for many months beforehand, and you just came and bloody did it.
You could look at that as being a disadvantage, but if you say that if you use an emulator, and a lot of the modern guys will use emulation because there's no machines, I always think I was at an advantage because I played live in the arcade when I was a kid. So between the ages of 12 and 15, I was at the arcade. That's what we did at the weekend. We went to the arcade, we played these games. And then we got better and better and better. So I'd already had that experience. So if I play live, I might play outside in the middle of the football field with everyone watching. For me, that is the rush, and that gives me the incentive to play.
Yeah, the buzz.
Absolutely. So as a kid, I was only 12 years old, and people were watching me get a million points on Pac-Man. It was a huge boost. It's like rock star. But that's when you're a kid, obviously. So that was the incentive, and like I said, I feel like I was at an advantage because I had that as experience in the past, where I could just jump into a game of Pac-Man and go for it, because that's all I was used to playing live. So yeah, it's only live play, but for me, for everyone else, that you may feel that if you're a contender for the world record, if I walk out and press one player starts on Pac-Man and I die within the first 50,000 points, it's not an embarrassment to me. That's what arcades are about. You learn about your mistakes and that's how you improve. But yeah, it was an advantage to me, I think, because I always played live.
Yeah, but you didn't even practice on an arcade cab when you did your thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. You weren't going to the arcade every week like you did as a kid, and you just did it at the end of that 3 or 4 months. You just came in and did it. But you had previous runs unsuccessfully, but you were still getting massive scores. You just weren't getting that quite perfect.
Well, the benefit I had is I had the knowledge from back in the day. So I already had the knowledge. I just really had to polish up on it. Grouping techniques, like I said, I was doing a live stream with Tim, and then he was, well, you've got the game, you can do this. And then it was just a case of gradually pushing the score higher and higher and conquering the 1 second boards. Now they're the boards you need to overcome when you play Pac-Man.
Yeah.
because they're the ones that everyone falls down on. There's been thousands and thousands of guys worldwide have gone for a perfect game, but that's where they fall down. Always, you need plenty of patience, especially on the 1 second boards. But what I do is, from the first apple, which is when the game actually ramps up the speed, I treat every single board then as a 1 second board. And the reason why I do that is not I'm not interested about the time it takes, because my game took 6.5 hours. As long as I know that every single board that I don't need to look at what board I'm on now, I know this is how it's going to be treated. It's going to be treated as a 1 second board, and I'm going to group the ghosts perfectly. It's the way you've got to do it.
Yeah. Did you want to say something, Tony?
I did.
John, can you talk a bit about the way you play Pac-Man? So you use the grouping technique as opposed to what arguably any one of us in this room could do, which is to just learn patterns. Can you?
Sure.
I think that's a...
Yeah, because that is a lot of hard work. I don't know how you do it. So you try and explain to us how you do that.
I don't know how many people in the audience played Pac-Man in the very early 80s. Show of hands, who played Pac-Man when it came out? Well, you guys, can you remember how you started to play? How did you up your score? You watched people play. Okay, so you looked over the shoulder. In my case, it was in Las Vegas and Liverpool, so they had 2 Pac-Man machines, and they were twin screen machines. So you would stand there and you'd watch other people play. So what I used to do is obviously watch people play. I'd incorporate their gameplay into mine, and then we would, almost in effect, you would build patterns as you went along. You'd watch people make mistakes. You'd watch different differences in the game, what the ghost would do, and then you would incorporate that into your game. So it was the early form of building patterns. So I used patterns in the early days, but we found that once you got to the end of the game, once you got to a split screen, that was the end of the game. But what you had to do then is you needed to take advantage of the points. So the points were all about getting ghosts. To get the ghost, you needed to group them all together, and you need to get as many points as possible. But in answer to your question, as far as patterns are concerned, the very, very fast games that you see now, perfect games, and some of them have been done using emulation. Obviously, they've paused the game, they've advanced it frame by frame, and they've made these perfect patterns, and some of them are quite interesting to watch because they travel through the ghosts 5 or 6 times, which looks like a glitch. I think you mentioned it before, Sean. But yeah, that's a skill in itself, but it's not for me. And I don't take it away from anyone who does it that way, because in the modern age we use emulation because not everyone's got a perfect Pac-Man machine that they can use, and it's got to be in 100% condition. So yeah, that was my way. And I go back to what I was saying before. I had the advantage of playing back in the day, so I've got all the knowledge. I just needed to polish up on everything. So even if I wanted to play on an emulator,
Can you not just Google it?
you
In
can.
1982.
Absolutely not.
Google then.
Didn't even have a phone. You had to go to a big red box sticking out the ground.
Absolutely. Because even back then, there wasn't even the knowledge like in printed form. There was like a little silly book you'd get to play Pac-Man perfectly.
It was Mastering Pac-Man by Kenston.
Did you write it by any chance?
No. I remember seeing the book at the time. Now, the big turning point in my game was late in '81. So there was a guy in the arcade that came in on one Saturday, and he was on 600,000 points on Pac-Man. My highest was 300,000 at the time, because when you get to the 9th key, that's when you need a clearing pattern, as they call it.
Yeah.
So I came to the arcade, and it was busy as usual on a Saturday, and there was a guy on 600,000 points, and a huge group of people watching. Turns out he's a guy from America. I don't know what his name was to this date, but he got 800,000 in the end, and I was watching him do this clearing pattern, or the apple pattern as they call it, because I use that even today. So the reason why I use a pattern after the 9th key is because it would take you literally days and days and days to freehand everything. And with my game, if my pattern breaks down, as crossing the desert as we call it, with 234 boards.
Yeah.
If it breaks down, you need to be able to recover. It's one thing learning a pattern, because if that pattern breaks down, you're in trouble then, especially after the 9th key, because the ghosts are much quicker than you. And you just run around, you don't know where to go, so you need what's called group again. So yeah, that's the way I play, and some of the main guys. I know Dave Race, he's got the fastest time. He's got 3.5 hours for a perfect game, but it's completely different. He uses an emulator and he constructs these patterns which are extremely quick.
And particularly your game, John, when we finish here later on, you'll probably be playing Pac-Man a bit out there, and people can watch you and see what you mean by getting, because I've watched you before, just going around and around waiting for things to happen. And obviously in your head you know exactly what's going on, going, why is he just doing this? And if there is a reason for it, you can show people what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for hours on the intricacies of it, but you'll probably see that when you see me grooving, I'm actually positioning the ghost in a certain order. So when I hit a certain bar pill, I know particular ghost will reverse in a certain order.
Right.
Because you've got 1 second. As soon as you touch that power pill, the timer starts. Literally, as soon as you touch it, even when you reverse, you've used a third of a second. So then ghosts have got 3 blue flashes and they go back to their original colour. And that's where lots of my games have failed because of that.
Wow.
You
Just that
reverse.
one little thing, and you
That's it, you'll go for the final ghost, he'll be slightly too far away and he'll change and you've died.
just turn the machine off, start again.
After hours,
Wow.
all hours and hours, and it took 6 years in the making.
Yeah. Thanks. And David,
Me?
tell us about your record. What is it?
What game was it again?
Yes.
This one.
That one, Galaxian.
This one. Right, so I feel like a bit of a newbie really, because I didn't play Galaxian back in like 1979-80. I can remember having a brief game with my cousin back in probably about 80. I had one game and it probably lasted about 30 seconds. So I didn't see Galaxian again till maybe about 86. I saw it in an arcade and played it maybe once or twice again. That was it again. So I didn't grow up in the arcades. It was mainly just holidays and seaside trips, and that was it really.
Same with me.
Yeah. So
Yeah, unless you live near the seaside, not many places had arcades, unless there's a caravan park maybe somewhere close or a cafe. Because that sort of thing. I take it where you live, there wasn't that many arcades around.
there might have been one in town. I never went there because it was
Right.
Dodgy days.
full of rough
arcade.
kids. Yeah.
Dodgy days. That was
It's quite interesting you say you never went to the arcades when, I'm not sure about the audience, I think a lot of them know you, but they know how good you are on a lot of games. So that particular one is your world record in the Guinness Book of Records, I believe.
That's yeah. When did I do that? No, it was 2016 in May, and it took 7.5 hours nearly.
And how many points did you get in the end on Galaxian?
2,010,000 points.
And the record before that was another UK guy. And what was that?
Well, there was Gary Whelan. That
Gary Willing, yeah.
he did the record in 2004, I think,
Mhm.
and he was the first player to get 1,000,000 points.
Wow.
But there was a guy after that called Art Van Vliet, and I think John's met him.
Yeah,
And I can remember you saying, I think you saw me playing at one of the events, and you were saying like I played exactly the same as he did.
absolutely.
So that was kind of encouragement in itself. So when I first played Galaxian, really, was really with the advent of MAME, when MAME came in, and I can remember joining the AtGap forums, which I think Tony was on. And they used to have like a weekly competition on various games, and Galaxian came up, and that was really my first kind of
That's the catalyst for me.
that was my catalyst to learning the game properly. And I think I managed 70,000, if that. You know,
Wow, that's still good.
It was
It really is.
it was nothing really, and then so.
This guy.
Yeah, some guy beat me. He got 90. Remember Sick Boy?
I do, yeah.
Remember Sick Boy? Yeah, he's an awesome gamer.
So Galaxian, as the other guys explained, the settings, and on Galaxian I don't think there is a marathon mode, because there's 3
It's-
lives
and one extra.
and 1 extra,
Yeah.
that's all you get. Like
So-
the Donkey Kong ones, 3
Yeah.
lives, 1 extra, that's it. And you
So
gotta keep
it's
going.
effectively tournament settings by default.
That's right.
Yeah. So you get those 3 lives. You can't. You've got to protect those lives. It's like a knife edge gameplay. It's not like Gallagher where you get kind of breaks now and again in Gallagher. You get the bonus
That's right, when
rounds
they're
where you
moving
can't
around
die
and
yet.
stuff, yeah.
So it's a constant onslaught for 7 hours. 7 hours 20.
7 hours, it's
Yeah.
really-
Yeah. 7 hours 20. Yeah.
How long did it take you to do it, practicing?
It's probably when Arcade Club started really.
20...
In 2014, yeah. So it first started Arcade Club in the back of a computer shop in my hometown, which it had no right to do because nothing cool happens in my town. It was like it was one of those things. So I remember going through the door, and just to the left hand side, about 10 paces away, was a Galaxian cabinet, and I hadn't seen one of those for 30 years probably.
Yeah.
And I probably had that cab for the next like 6 months.
You did, Dave, yeah.
I probably did. That's why nobody else has got the
Greedy.
record. Yeah. And I think the first game I got 60,000, and the second game I got 121,000.
That's
And-
the thing with you, you're a very quick learner.
And I think, as Alex has found out, with,
Yeah. people don't know this already. Alex and I have been challenging to a game called Rescue out there. It's a really good game. Have a go of it. It's really, really cool. Alex's cab. And I beat my score yesterday, and Alex beat mine this morning. Up yours, Alex. And then Charlie Fives his forum name, had about 4 goes on it and smashed it. That's it. His skill just sort of goes, oh yeah, and it's done. And he's beaten it by, what is it?
What did it? 93.
Yeah, I was about that far from turning the thing off.
Yeah. Because you've got a cabinet of your own at home, but it's a candy cabinet, Japanese style cabinet.
Yeah, New Astral City.
Yeah.
Which is what I did my record on. I filmed it live on Twitch. I didn't do it in an arcade, so I did it at home.
With an actual arcade board.
With an actual
stress.
I did start with MAME.
Yes.
With Groovy MAME. Probably in January 2016.
Yeah.
And I was approaching 1 million points. I think the first stream, John watched my first stream, and I don't think I did too well. I think I got like 270,000 and a 330,000.
Is that all?
That's all I got, yeah. Because it's quite, when you're playing live with streaming, it changes the entire experience of playing. It was really weird at first, because you know there's people like scrutinising you playing, especially if there's some classic art gameplay. There was like some Americans in the stream they were watching, and so it's quite intimidating really at first.
With those Twitch streams, I know a lot of people, they talk to each other and they comment on it.
Yeah.
Obviously you couldn't type while you were playing the
No,
game. Could you hear anyone comment, or was you just focused on the game?
It was on the computer by the side.
Right,
so
I see, yeah.
I wasn't watching at all.
Can I just ask, like when you're doing it live,
Yeah.
you know, King of Kong, where you see Bean Mitchell in the background. I know it's all kind of fake, that film, but
Yeah.
he's kind of trying to put the other guy off. Have you ever found, like,
Absolutely.
when you're doing it live, the American guys try and put you off in a particular way,
If it
and
was
what
some-
they've done?
Can everyone hear me okay with that mic?
Yeah. Not really.
Not really.
Yeah, it's something, I don't know if you've seen The King of Kong, as most people have seen.
Sure, everyone has.
Yeah. Well, you see when Steve Weeby goes over to Fun Spot and he's having to play live, and then there's loads of guys there, and he's got this reception. It's a very frosty reception. Because who's this new guy? I had a similar thing, because when I went over there, my score was grandfathered into the Twin Galaxy database. So if I would have submitted that score when I got it in June '83, I would have been world champion there.
They wouldn't have liked that.
Absolutely not.
Oh no.
So back then they had like a peer review system that someone could challenge your score and say, well, I want to see you play live within 6 months, but you've got to get 75% of your claimed score. So that's how live and accurate I wanted to be. So when Tony said, do you want to go over and play live? I thought, well, okay, I'll do it. I'll go and prove it. And they were like, there's this guy from England coming in, he's ex-world record holder. So I got quite a bit of practice in, and when I went over there, I got the same sort of reception. So this is an elite clique. Everyone owns all the world records there. The Americans own all the world records. So we turn off and it's like, here's this new guy from England. So I was playing live, and little did they know, hang on a sec, I'm at the advantage because I always play live. So the more people that watch, the better. So they ended up standing on chairs watching over the game, they watched me play.
That is intimidating, though, surely.
No, that's what pushes me on to play.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Because in America as well, I've been to Fun Spot a few times, and I've seen some of these, met some of the guys as well. They're all quite friendly with each other, aren't they?
absolutely.
There's not a lot of bad rivalry. There's one or two, but I mean they're quite friendly. And when a guy like you comes over, well, I think they sort of accepted you because you're quite friendly with a lot of those guys now. And they're really nice people. I've met some of them. They're lovely.
Yeah, the thing is with elite gaming, 'cause in America's they always have the best gamers, but the elite gamers, they're in a different league, and that's
Yeah.
not to bull us up.
Yeah.
But that's the challenge that we had as well, and to go on their turf and beat scores over there, that was the thing for me. But like I said, I played live, and that was my home. It didn't matter where I played, as long as I could play live.
I'm not a good gamer at all, but I mean, coming here today, I mean, I beat one of my scores yesterday, and I beat the rescue score, and not in the same league as you guys, but I sort of find it quite fun when people are watching you, talking to your mate next to you, and you're sort of trading tips and that, and I do find it, weirdly, I play better.
It
So
does
if
spur you on, doesn't it?
Yeah, when I'm at home, I'm sort of playing a game. Oh, for God's sake, you turn it off, you play another game, and you go get a cup of tea or something. But when you're here, it's what you do. You're here to do this. So I tend to sort of home in and go, I'll have another game at that. And I've messed up that time, I'll have another game, and I'll go off somewhere, and Alex will beat me, and I'll go try and beat him, and then beat him. And It's just me. Yeah, I did. I beat you. And then he beat me. Then this man came along. Yeah.
For me, it's the same result, but for the opposite reason. So when people are watching, I've just got this innate fear of screwing up.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm supposed to be, you know, the world champion on Missile Command. You think there's 20 people watching me. If I have a game like the one I had last night here at home, these people are going to be like, yeah, this guy can't, you know, when push comes to shove these. So for me, it's a sort of inverse motivator that I just don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I'm spurred on to play well, I think.
Because
So,
back in the day
basically-
when we were kids, we used to put 10p on the bezel, and that was a way of you've had enough play, get off.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't do that now, right? Because everything's on free play. But
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
that was a technique to sort of put them off.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
ever get that now, in a sort of in another way?
I will be putting 10p on your machine later on. You're back, right? Mom.
For me, it's like this zone. You know, when people get into the zone. So
Yeah.
I kind of get into the zone when I play, and if I'm playing live and there's people around, when the screen in between waves, the screen briefly goes off,
Yeah.
and you suddenly get the reflection of what's going on in the background. So you're kind of playing along, and then the screen sort of flashes off and then comes back on for the next wave, and just in that split second, you see like 20 faces behind you, and you go, oh fuck, shit. Sorry, my language. My God, there's 20 people watching me. Oh, okay, come on, let's get a grip. You know, it's for me, it achieves the same result, but
Yeah.
it's a fear thing as opposed to a I want to look great thing.
I know exactly what you mean.
just don't
Because,
wanna screw up.
there's a guy called Pete Harm who works at the Galaxian Ghost in Chicago, and he's a world-class player like you guys on loads of games, tons of them. And he came into Arcade Club, I took him up there, and we were playing, and there was a guy playing Shinobi. And I sort of said to him, oh, this guy's a world record holder. And Pete had a go, and he hadn't played for a while. And he just completely messed it up. The way he was playing was world class. He was doing things that normal people don't do, because it's easier, and you get more points the way he was doing it. And this guy sort of looked at me like, really? I was like, hold on a minute. And like a few goes later, and he was like doing the game. He's just got him back into it again. But I know what you mean. He was a little bit intimidated because he hadn't played it for a while. Oh, go on, you can go. And he wasn't that brilliant, but the way he played it was completely different class to where everyone else plays it. Because he does it in a way where he gets maximum points by doing it the hardest way you can do it. And everyone else will go, why are you doing it like that?
Not using magic.
He doesn't use any magic or he doesn't use a ninja style. He just gets right up to him and hits him. You've got to go really close every time. It's so easy to get killed.
Yeah.
But that's the method to get the maximum points, and that's how he always plays it.
Yeah, and
It's a different league. You know?
I think the other thing worth just throwing out there is, as I'm sure everybody in this room knows, if you're a gamer, you can have your game, and whether you're world class, is that the phrase you use? Whether
You
you're-
are world class now.
That's very kind. Whether you're you know, the best in the world, or you it's just your game and you play at home or whatever. You've still got that Murphy's Law of video games. It's kind of like playing snooker. You're like, well, you know, my highest break's 85, but I just missed a simple red over the pocket. It's exactly the same when I play Missile Command. It's like, not every game is going to be a 1,000,000 point game. In fact, not every game is going to be a 100,000 point game. You know, I'm certainly definitely rusty. I'm certainly not at that level again where I think I could beat my world record score tomorrow. But even now, playing a game, you would think, being the best in the world on Missile Command, I have a great game every time. It's like nothing could be further from the truth. Sometimes it's just a total disaster. And you just
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
what just happened now? My game just died, and I was really trying. I was really trying my best, and I'm supposed to be. It's that whole stuff just messes with your mind, and you've got to, when you're going for it, you've just got to cut through that and just keep going and restarting and trying again. I'm sure it's the same on Pac-Man and Galaxian. You just have those games constantly.
And when you're playing and you know I'm not doing too well here, us lot are watching you going, you've got 100,000 points, you're doing really well. You're like, no, because it's not going your way. Patterns aren't happening the way you want. The ghosts aren't chasing. The bases have been taken. You're missing stuff on Galaxian, whatever. And you know, I'm going to turn it off and start again. And we're going, what? Why?
Yeah.
It's another level.
It's very true.
It really is.
So what would you say is the qualities of a world-class gamer? Like determination? What's the quality that gets you to that level?
Well, patience is definitely.
Patience.
Yeah. Once you've got a game and you've got a score, always keep your scores and log your scores. That's what I'd say. Because so many people look at these massive scores, perfect Pac-Man, 2 million on Galaxians, world record hold. Just log your score and up your score. Always record your scores.
Yeah.
Progressively get better. That's the way I do it.
Now we keep on about on the podcast. There's this app called Sidekick. It's a friend of yours did it, and it's only a friendly thing. It's not adjudicated anyway. But we're getting scores now. We're putting them in there, and you can like see how good you are against Charlie or Tony or whatever. And it's just a way of, you might not be right at the top of that, but your mate might be like 1 or 2 up. You know, I'm going to beat him, and you just keep going at it, and then before long you will get a bit higher up.
Yeah, I think one of the qualities, it's like it's been said, determination really.
Yeah.
But I think it's obviously being passionate about gaming, and it's also it's not gonna be a linear journey from like being bad at the game to being like world class at the game. You're gonna like stall at points, and you're gonna actually get worse at some points. It's just the way it goes. You're just not thinking about the game properly, or you've actually got into a bad habit and you're starting to play not quite optimally.
Yeah.
So it's what was I trying to say?
When you were playing Galaxian, you're eating a cheeseburger, David.
I always eat cheeseburgers.
So it's just one-handed. That's why he's only getting.
No, I eat biscuits when I'm playing.
That's why he's only getting 500,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think from like January when I was going for the record, I probably like finished about 10% in the games. It was just like restarting most of the time. It's like restart.
Yeah.
And I think we call it the grind, don't we? When it's like it's just not going right, and you're making so little progress, and it's just not happening. And I think that's when you need to be part of a community as well, really, because there's a lot of support in the arcade community, and there's a lot of encouragement, like the 10 pence guy. These guys encourage me, cajoled me to do the
Yeah, we
record.
do.
Yeah.
Especially there's a guy on the 10 Pence Up podcast, a friend of ours called Dave Tronans,
Yeah.
and he trolls us all the time. I hope you can hear this, Tronans. And he'll egg David on to beat one of my scores. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, we'll just throw that away now. We do it back to him as well.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, David, just have a go at rescue. See if you can just beat Alex there.
I call Tron as my gaming oracle, because he always picks me next game for him. He says, "You want to start playing Donkey Kong?" And then there was the time
Yeah.
before that, and he says, "You want to start playing Dig Dug?"
Yeah, because I was the best in the
I
country at
upset-
it, and then
I
he
upset.
comes to that.
I think you get 500,000.
Yeah.
And I was learning. I think I got 2 million points in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, you have this
Not to make you
natural
feel-
ability, don't you?
I don't.
On like almost any game, within a couple of weeks,
Definitely not every game.
you get to a level. It's almost like world class. Like in a month, like Burger Time, Centipede, like everything. How do you do that, David? How, mate?
I don't know.
I got a theory about this. I'm not sure about you two guys, but I know you look at a game and you sort of analyse it. But
Yeah.
David you're a pianist. You used to be a pianist by trade.
I was a classically trained pianist. I
Yeah.
think some of it it's not so much the dexterity of playing. I think it's the way I used to approach learning pieces. You break them up. And
Yeah.
I used to learn the hardest bits first.
Okay.
You can't do that in thing, but it's sort of like patching it together.
Yeah.
So
It's nothing to do with hand-eye coordination, because obviously being a pianist, you're two-handed, almost ambidextrous.
Yeah, it must be a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Especially with things like twin-stick games, like Robotron, for instance.
Yeah, I'm not that good at Robot.
You are. You've got 800,000 points. That's pretty good. Not good. Hey?
I've only been playing it about 4. I've not played it. I've probably had about 5 games of it before, say 3-4 weeks ago, when we played on.
Yeah. They're not good at it.
Don't stop playing Pac-Man then.
Yeah.
Pac-Man, you say? I don't know how you do myself, Commander. So.
So the other thing I was going to say, if you're coming away from this talk all inspired to go for a world record, God help you. The thing that I've done, I don't know if it's true of you two guys, is I've always been very conscious of breaking my game down and putting right the things that I'm not good at. So Donkey Kong, I, for the life of me, cannot get over 150,000. I don't know how people do it, I don't get it, but clearly now hundreds of people have not only got past 150,000, my mark in the sand, but they've actually got to the kill screen. That's something I'd like to do. But I don't know what it is I'm doing wrong, because I've played countless games of Donkey Kong. I still do today. It's probably my favourite game at the moment. and I just break down every single time, pretty much in the same place for the same reason. So thinking that back to Missile Command, there were things like smart bombs. I wasn't quite getting my smart bomb accuracy 100%. So I would just start zoning in on that and just trying to perfect that aspect of the game. So I would say, rather than just throwing a load of time into one particular game, really analyse what you're doing and try and learn from the game that ended early as to why it ended early. And what you'll find over time is that you realise, hang on a minute, there's a bit of a pattern here. The reason my games are ending early is because I'm mistiming the jump on the elevators on screen 6. So I just need to go back to that and just sort of work on that and get that right. And then you'll find you'll get over that, and then there'll be something else that you think, well, if I did this, I could drive my score up even higher.
Yeah, and when you get to certain levels, those things you've learned change slightly, and you've got to learn them all again, like a slightly faster or a delayed rate or whatever.
And that's a really difficult thing to do. I think, as Dave said, I can watch other people play Missile Command and think, yeah, that guy's got a really bad habit. I suppose it's like being a pianist. There are pianists out there who, don't use their pinky finger enough, and that's probably a really bad habit that you need to break. You've got to start working on your pinky finger and start, building it into your playing style. And I think it's exactly the same in video gaming. That everybody has a bad habit on a game which they need to probably work on.
Well, what you were saying about those certain areas of your game, like using a smart bomb, that is a perfect example where you can use in main the save states. You get up to a certain point, save state, then do the bit you're trying to do, and if you don't do it, just go back rather than going back all the way to the start of the game. But have you ever used that? I know John's never done it. Have you ever done it in main, or do you just play on your cabinet?
I just play on my cabinet, and probably the main reason for that is Missile Command is one of those games which really, to be played properly, you need to use the original hardware.
Of course, the trackball, isn't it? Yeah.
So there's a 4.5-inch trackball, and there's 3 fire buttons. So it's a totally different experience trying to play it either with a joystick, God help us, or indeed a main style trackball, because it's not going to be the right size and it isn't going to be emulated 100%. So you really need to use the correct physical interface with the game.
And when you guys get to your level, if something's not 100% right, especially in John's case, even like, I don't know, a tenth of a second can make or break your game, and main isn't that accurate. Even with Groovy Main, which syncs the picture and everything to arcade standards, it's not absolutely perfect. And you lot would notice, if you put a PC in a cabinet, you play, you go, there's a PC in there, you know straight away. Everyone else is going, it's all right.
Yeah.
Straight away.
You also touched on something else, Vic. Sorry, we're going off on hundreds of tangents here, but I think the one thing that makes our 3 achievements similar is that the games we've done it on, just one tiny mistake and the whole thing's screwed up. If John misses one ghost on screen 222, that's it. He can no longer get a perfect game. It can't be done. Or if he loses a life on screen 32, that's it. The perfect game's gone. If I miss a missile and lose a city, it's gone. It's never coming back. And arguably the game's over. Or if I lose the wrong city early on, I want to leave myself a particular city in a particular location. If that goes early, I know it's over. And probably same with Dave is if he loses a guy early on, the chances are he's going to think, I need to restart this game.
Galaxian is very accurate. I think your games are very accurate, all 3 games.
Yeah, I think accuracy in Galaxian is probably the prime skill you need to develop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all tied. You need to learn how the enemies behave. Really, that's the key to it, really. And I think what happens is when they're in formation and they peel off from the edges and they come down in like a sine wave pattern. And the way that pattern works is it's based on your location when they first set off. So you can use that to your advantage. So the real skill is learning to not move too much, because if you start moving around like crazy on the bottom, the Galaxians are gonna cover the entire bottom of the screen because you can't shoot them all.
This is the technicality I was on about earlier. You've analysed this, because we wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
We're just like going, I'm trying not to get hit by a bullet, and these things are coming away, and you can almost tell them where they're going to go.
You sort of like, as you're moving, you sort of like buffering in your head. I'm not saying that sounds like a computer, doesn't it? That you sort of like you sort of like buffering in your head where the safe spots, because the safe spot's continually moving. So you need to have an escape plan, pre-planned in your head, because your ship's so slow. You need to preempt where you're going to go.
I hear all this, but none of it is staying in there. It's going whee out the side. That's why you're good.
It just takes a long time to master. I mean, you need something wrong with you basically to do it.
We were thinking that, and everyone here is thinking that as well.
Yeah.
In a nice way.
You guys have picked games that are quite popular, like Galaxian, Pac-Man, and they're classics, right? But do you think people like us should pick games, more obscure games like Sheriff that no one's got, to get world records on?
I know someone who
Don't
does
bring
that.
them to events.
Well, there's only one world record. Yeah. I think if you're going to go for a record, then you shouldn't just pick a game because it's a classic. You've got to pick a game that you like. Yeah. So because otherwise you're not going to be able to do it, because you're going to be staring at this game for months. You're going to be studying for months, and you're not going to have that. You're not going to be able to last it out if you haven't got the passion behind that game. So you just got to pick what you like. And I just happen to love Galaxian, so same with John and Tony.
Did any of you use video footage of your gameplay to break down the game at all?
Not really, no. I mean, I've seen there's a small video of art on YouTube, but it's like when he first started getting into Galaxian. I think it's called Flashback to the 80s or something, the video, and it's Art playing, who was the previous world record holder. And that's the only clip I could find.
Of your play.
Oh,
Tony mentioned about where he was
I've got
finding things that he was doing wrong. Did you use video footage of what you were doing to see where you were going wrong? Improve that?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit. I've watched a little. I mean, it's really boring, but I've watched a little parts of where I've died. I've not watched the entire game, but you kind of like look back at it, because when you're playing at the time, you lose a life, and you've got to let it go from your mind completely straight away. You can't like dwell on it. Same with like games like Donkey Kong. You just got to let it go, and maybe then reflect on it later and think, well, what could I have done then? Could I have? Because you get little. It's a random game, is Galaxian, so you kind of get little scenarios that kind of unfold, and you learn to recognise these scenarios. You might get two over here, they're both coming this way, and you learn little muscle memory type things that help you. So you kind of develop those over time. So you die in one spot and you think, well, next time there was probably a spot over here I could have gone to. You kind of learn off that. So yeah, looking at videos probably does help a lot. Yeah.
I've seen some, what you say there, I mean, a lot of players, myself included, if I died earlier on, my mind's just going, no, you've messed it up, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I've seen people do the whole of Donkey Kong from 100,000 points to 1.2 million with one life. They lose two lives, and they just keep going, I'll keep going, and they do it. You're like, ah.
You did a similar thing.
I've had 934,000 on Donkey Kong.
With one life.
No, I think I got to 600,000 on my first life, and then obviously it starts growing. So I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a top 50 player, if you will. Unofficially, I've not submitted a score or anything.
Yeah.
God, you need to get better.
I need to.
You just got to, it's just getting that, don't worry about it, just keep going.
You
You've got another two lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's frame of mind, isn't it?
Yeah,
Being
it is a
relaxed.
frame. I think a lot of people tend to have a really good first life because they're like they're fresh on the game, and it's like, this is going to be the game, and it's like you lose that life and
You lose it.
You lose it a little bit, yeah.
Mm.
Because on the build up to my record run, when I was streaming, I was having some decent games, and I was getting like maybe 500,000 on my first life, and then it'd kind of drop off a bit, and I'd maybe get 200, 300,000, and I'd be on my last life at 1,000,000 points.
Mm.
I was thinking, well, I'm going to struggle to get to 1.6 now, and invariably I died. But on my record run, it was the same pattern again. I thought I was on my last life at 1,000,000 points. Thought, oh, this is going to happen again.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I must have got into the zone or something. So I scored 1,000,000 points on my last life, which was, and then I just killed myself.
That was
off.
handy. You killed yourself off at the
I
end.
killed myself off at the end. Yeah. Yeah.
Got bored.
I got bored. Yeah. I need to put some more cheeseburgers on. Yeah.
So what's next for you guys then? Are you going for different games, or are you going to carry on Pac-Man?
I know two of these guys are really good at something. Tony's just lovely.
The thing is, going for a world record score, you've got to invest so much time in it. So with me, it's one round track and field. So I'm a contender on that. So the likes of 100 metres on track and field, the world record score for the 100 metres is 7.54.
I
was
Yeah.
listening, sorry.
It's one of the American guys anyway. The world record on 100 metres on track and field 7:54, and I've had 7:57, so it's only 300ths away. But to get a record on track and field on one round, so it's not playing forever, just doing one round. The record's 98,000, so but you do have to invest so much time. Another game I'd like to play to the end and to go for the world record is 1942. So I could contend on that as well as track and field. But I've really, so much of the time recently has been concentrated on getting a perfect Pac-Man. Just talking about what the guys were saying before about your lives. With a perfect game, when you start, the thing that's up against you from the beginning is as soon as you press start, you cannot make a mistake. Whereas if you, and that's not to say that these guys did any less than what I did, but it's the mindset you've got to be in to get a perfect game of Pac-Man. Because if you make any mistake whatsoever, that's it, it's finished. When you look at your lives, so you'll have 4 lives plus 1. Your lives are there for you to score at the end of the game. So when you get on the split screen, it's actually playable, the split screen on Pac-Man. And each life represents 90 points. So if I die going for a perfect game, but I go all the way to the end, I lose 90 points. So that's how my game incrementally went up. So I had a near on perfect game because I died twice, so I lost 180 points. But that's the thing with a perfect game, you can't look at your men and think, oh, I'm doing really well. It's either 3.333 million or bust. So that was it. But no incentive. The only incentive was not to miss anything. And to show the Americans that they don't own all the video game world records. You know, we've got some great players.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sitting out here as well.
What are you going to go for, David? Or Tony?
I'm a one-trick pony. I'm not good at any other games to world record standard. Having said that, next year is the 40th anniversary of Missile Command and Pac-Man. Not sure, possibly Galaxian as well. Yeah, indeed.
this year.
Yeah. Okay,
79.
79. I'm writing a book actually about Missile Command, which I'm hoping to release next year. Fingers crossed. One of the things I wanted to do on the 40th anniversary was to break the world record on super missile attack, which was an unofficial follow-up to Missile Command, developed by a group of students in Boston. And it's like Missile Command on acid. It's just absolutely crazy. It just keeps getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. There's no sort of plateau. And so therefore, to beat the world record is like a 20-minute job. So I'm thinking,
Right. I was actually going to say,
given I'm an old man now and I've slowed down quite considerably, I think that probably will suit. So I'm kind of thinking I might do that just for the giggles of it.
you stole my question. I was going to say, because I remember that extra game of Missile Command. I thought, I bet you're good at that as well. And you obviously are, because it's a similar game, but faster, as you said.
Yeah, it's
You could do that.
It kind of comes back to what I said earlier about I'm going to have to break down my gameplay that I use currently, because it just doesn't work on Super Missile.
Totally different again. Same game, but totally different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
So much so that actually you have to ignore your cities. So the whole point of Missile Command is to protect these cities. The Super Missile attack, the scenario is the same, but if you try and protect your cities, your game's going to finish pretty quickly. So there comes a point where you've got to completely ignore the cities, let them die, and just go for points. So you've just got to hit stuff that's worth a lot of points to get yourself over the next threshold to get a bonus city so that the game continues. So inadvertently they completely turn the whole game on its head, that it doesn't become about
Clever way of doing it though, a different game, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
So David, which 6 records are you going for?
Which
Today. Serious ones, though, so you are good at a
Serious
lot
ones.
of games. The serious ones, you think you can actually get the world record, Twin Galaxies, and in the Book of Records.
Space Invaders.
Space Invaders is one I've contemplated.
And what is the record on that at the moment? See, my record's 6,000.
Just
Pretty
over,
good.
did you not get that 7,000 on that? On the Space Invaders out there?
No.
Is that not your score?
No.
Alright, I was told.
But
it was
6,000, eh?
6,000.
6,000. What's the world record?
212 or something like that. 212,000.
You-
I've currently had 34, so
Yeah.
I've still got a way to go. But
That's really good, but I suppose once you get in that groove, it's the
Yeah.
same, and then you said it resets after a while, and you're back to.
I think there's about 10 levels in it, but then they reset back up to the high to the top level again.
Yeah, okay.
So you get a little bit of a break, but it's essentially the game, same pattern every level, where they call it the tunnel of death, they call it the wall of death,
Yeah.
and you've got to take 2 columns out.
Right.
Then you sit in that safe spot and you shoot the UFOs.
Oh,
So
that's a weird way of playing it.
Yeah, you see, so it looks like your game's going to end because you're letting them go down to the invading level.
Yeah.
So when they're on the invading level,
They can't shoot at you either.
they can't shoot at you,
Yeah.
so you can just safely go underneath them and take that row out.
I'll have to watch you play that. That sounds
So
quite
you just keep
interesting.
repeat. Yeah, that one out there is a bit weird. It keeps crashing. It like does this. You saw me do it. Like half the.
That's a feature. That's not.
It's
It's
a
not
feature.
pressure.
Yeah.
And a bad workman always blames his tools.
There's another game with features called Phoenix, which
Yes.
I would like to get better at Phoenix as well.
No, you're good at it already.
Yeah,
Too good.
but I think it's Frankie Knuckles. It's about 1 million points, so I'm away.
Yeah.
I'm away off that.
Yeah, because that game's full of bugs.
Richard
and
Knuckles.
Frankie
It's Frankie Knuckles.
is
Dave
like
Knuckles.
Is a house DJ.
He's a house DJ. He just DJs in his house.
Possibly.
Right.
That's about it for our official questions. Any questions for the audience, please, for these guys? You said Tronauts, I don't know. Here he goes.
Don't do it.
No,
Here's his little stooge. I am Jimmy. Go on.
don't do it.
This is actually my question, it's not from Trona.
All right.
So, Dave, you mentioned that there's got to be an attraction to the game, for you to put that much effort into it.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know how your relationship with the game has changed from
I
when
hate
you
it.
first played it and
Hate
you
it.
liked it to having to put so much effort in to get to that standard. Do you fall out of love with the game along that journey?
When you're getting worse at the game, you do kind of lose it a bit. But I remember playing it. It's my most vivid memory of an arcade game from like 1979, 80. So I think there's a lot of nostalgia in there. But I don't know. I still love the game. I find it's quite a relaxing game to play. So I think that's why I stuck
No,
at it.
it's not.
It's really it's therapeutic. It really is. It's one of these games that you can just chill out to and and I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to relax when you play these games because I think they try and work to try and wind you up these games. Because they have this thrumming noise in the background. Well, they have this noise in the background as the level progresses, it intensifies, and it's to get your heart rate going.
Pac-Man does that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
John? The whining gets
Yeah.
faster if you play it.
And the same with Space Invaders, you get that heartbeat noise in the background, and it's there to wind you up. So you've got to try and put that out of your head.
John and I have spoken about this in the past about how certain people play certain games. John, if you know John on a personal level, like I do, I've shared hotel rooms with him and all sorts. So John's a by his own admission, I'm sure, is a very precise guy. His sort of mind operates in a certain way, wants everything to be just so, and he's very organised and likes to iron a t-shirt, whereas I don't. And so I think something like Pac-Man, which requires that level of almost sort of OCD of I've got to get every single dot, I've got to get every single ghost, it's got to be done in a certain way, and then I'll get a perfect game. Whereas to me, in the way my mind works, it just sounds like my idea of hell trying to go for a perfect Pac-Man game. And for me, with Missile Command, I think it probably goes back as a kid. I was probably traumatised by the whole subject matter of nuclear war. Being a kid of the 80s, we all thought we were going to die at any moment, and so being able to play this game where in my mind I was saving the world, there's kind of more of it's sort of stuck with me into my adult life. I've never really shaken off. I don't know if that's the same with you, Dave. There's a guy called Richard Marsh in the US who was at one time the Tempest world record holder, but he was also a fantastic gyrus player. And in both of those games, you're shooting into the screen. So there was sort of something in his head that, and yet sitting in front of Space Invaders, he didn't know what he was doing, So he could only play these games where you spun around the top of the screen and shot into the screen. So there's just something particular about that style of game which appealed to him. And I think that's very true. I think of the serious classic arcade players, there are certain people who are attracted to certain games. Bill Mitchell's probably another one with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. They're both similar sort of skill sets of point pressing and maximising scores. So I think there's probably something in there for sure.
But you still play your own cabinet. You've got this beautiful cabinet at home, and that's the one you're never going to get rid of. You still play it to this day?
I do.
Every couple of days, every day?
Not every day, no. Probably once a week.
Yeah?
No, not really once a month. Not even that. I just
So
when
no
I,
then?
When I remember to switch it on and give it
Yeah.
a go, I'm very, 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 very rusty these days.
And John can't because he doesn't even own the cabinet anymore.
Right.
And you've got your own cabinet, you put arcade boards in
I've
as
got
well
the
as playing
arcade,
game as well. You play lots of games, especially Arcade Club as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your answer.
Well, it was part of the journey for me as well, because the game I got the perfect game on is the one outside. So I bought that on eBay for £120 and I completely restored it. So factory condition. So it didn't have to be just live, original. It was on an original machine as well. It was completely restored. So it's out there now, everyone's playing it, and to see people playing it, it's just come full circle. I knew what was going to happen. I wanted to do this, get a perfect game, and then the machine was going to go back in the wilderness for people to enjoy.
We are out of time, everyone. If you want to ask these guys some questions, I'm sure they'll take your questions out on the shop floor there and play some games with them.
All
We'll be
that's left
playing
now,
games.
Vic, is a quick sing song. Come on.
Start us off, Sean. Thanks for coming.